Hey team, welcome to our next episode of the Madison and Mountain View. Today we have a very special guest joining us, James Fayal from Zest. So James, if you could take a second and introduce yourself, kind of share some fun facts.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of Zest. We make a line of premium caffeine-enhanced teas. We take premium base teas and enhance them with natural tea extracts, which boosts a couple things. One of them is caffeine. It gets it on par with about coffee, or about double what traditional teas are. And then there's a slew of amino acids that help actually moderate how that caffeine affects your body. And for one thing, it extends the release of the caffeine, so it hits you over a longer period, so you don't have a quick spike fall by a crash like you would with coffee. It's much more prolonged energy. Anyways, I'm a University of Maryland graduate. Graduated in 2012. I was a finance major. Went on to join Venture for America in 2012, right after graduating. The program sends graduates out to startups in what they would call non-traditional startup cities, so pretty much anything that isn't New York, San Francisco, Chicago, DC, Boston kind of thing. The idea being twofold. One being that a very smart person put into a startup is going to have more of an effect than a very smart person put into one of the traditional industries of consulting, legal, banking. And the other being that if you can reverse what they call the brain drain and stop the 95% of all the Ivy League school kids or top students in the United States going to one of 5 cities, you can help these cities prosper somewhat. So I joined that, went off and started working some seed stage venture capital in Cincinnati for my first year, and then I switched over to a hardware incubator slash prototyping center based out of Philadelphia, and it was there that I started to grow Zest on the side. This was in late 2013, early 2014, and we hit the market with Zest in January 2014, so I was working on Zest and working full-time at this place for about 5 months. Got to a point where I just couldn't handle working that many hours between both these two things, and I had an opportunity to put some money together to go full-time with Zest, and I took it, and I've been full-time with Zest ever since about June 2014, and it's been a pretty wild ride ever since. I've stayed here in Philadelphia for the time being.
Awesome. So I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Does the world need another energy drink?
Yeah.
And I love tea, so I'm excited to talk about it in the background.
Yeah, no. So I absolutely
It's a scary vertical to join given all the competition. Why did you decide another energy drink?
Yeah. So the gap that I kind of identified in the market was that the tea market has become really a massive market in the U.S. in the last only 2 decades. It's grown by about 600%, now makes up a $25 billion market, and is still growing very quickly. It's finally starting to catch up to coffee when it comes to day-to-day consumption. It used to be that coffee would, percentage of U.S. adults that drank coffee blew the percentage of U.S. adults that drank tea out of the water. Now it's about 51% of U.S. adults drink tea every day, with millennials being about on par.
Tina's a tea drinker.
What?
It's all those Brits coming over here.
Yeah. So I identified that trend, and I was an avid tea drinker myself. And then the other thing I realized was that I was working very long hours as an analyst at this venture capital firm, was kind of when the idea sprouted, and I was kind of bottom rung on the ladder kind of thing, and I would find myself drinking 3, 4, 5 cups of tea in a day, and then realize I still had 8 hours of work to do. So then I would switch over to coffee or energy drinks or something I preferred less, and that I would use that to get through the rest of the day, to power through the rest of the day. And I was looking for a way of not having to make that switch to coffee or not having to make that switch to energy drinks, and being able to keep drinking tea but have it kind of provide the energy that I needed. So we went out to the market to see, okay, well, what's on the market that currently is a tea-based product that allows us to, or that provides that energy boost that we're looking for. And there wasn't really anything available. So I started working with an old roommate of mine who is a biomedical engineer, and we started developing a new series of kind of blending methods to see where we could incorporate new interesting ingredients, how to incorporate these things without altering the taste of the tea, which was really big, and what other benefits could we provide. And one of the big things with tea over coffee is that tea has an amino acid called L-theanine, and what that does is it actually helps moderate how the caffeine affects your body, and it's been shown to do two major things. One is boost cognitive function above and beyond the effect of just caffeine, and two is to, it's been shown to kind of moderate the levels at which caffeine affects you. So you hear people talk about it's a very focused energy. They don't feel jittery and they don't have a crash at the end. That's because of the L-theanine effect. It's been kind of heavily studied over the last couple decades. So when you combine that effect with a increased level of caffeine coming from this tea extract that we use, what you get is a energy boost similar to coffee that's going to keep you awake for 6 or 7 hours, and you're not going to have kind of a jittery spike for people that are sensitive, and you're not going to have a crash at the end. So
you get the enhanced cognitive skills, which
yeah,
I have.
Has anyone? I'm not trying to put everyone on the spot here, but is it? First of all, we'll do a little bit of product placement here. Has anyone tried it yet? This is looking a bit empty.
Not yet, but it sounds like I need to when I get in.
This is probably one of the first times I've been in the office since we met, James, and so I'm going to try it today, and I'll report back. I can tell you, I came back from South by Southwest, and you know what? I had one too many Red Bulls, so. So I actually had a question for you, which is, we obviously work with a lot of startups, and we advise them and we mentor them specifically about the concept of first customers, how to get typical seeding of a new product. And I thought I would actually turn it over to you and say, well, talk about as an entrepreneur and a founder, what kind of what you're faced with and what outlets are open to you now to actually seed and get the product into market and get people talking about it. We talk about social media, we talk about Kickstarter. There's so many products out there and services and outlets, but from your perspective, how have you gone to market? What has worked? What maybe hasn't worked as well in terms of just getting this kind of in the right hands and people talking about it?
Yep. So the company, in its early stages, we started with a crowdfunding campaign, actually when I was still in Cincinnati, in like mid-2013. And so that got together about just under $10,000, which was enough to kind of get a first batch of production done. There was a whole bunch of benefits we got out of the crowdfunding. One was that we developed an early list of customers, and many of them became our strongest kind of brand evangelists over the next year or so, and those guys have produced a multiple $10,000 for us just from the word of mouth that they've created. So we had that money up front, and we spent about 6 months kind of piecing together some of the smaller aspects of the supply chain, actually getting it produced, and hitting the market in January. I knew that we didn't have the funding for us going full time and having to support us by any means. So I continued to work full time at my regular job to kind of support my day-to-day expenses, and I kept the company just extremely lean. I built it as an online sales business because A, the margins are better, B, you don't have a lot of the expenses of having distributors holding your product across the nation, and C, as I was working full-time somewhere else, I didn't believe I had the time to maintain all these relationships that are required to be able to get into retail and all these other things. So the company started very, very lean. You know, the margins were good enough that as long as I wasn't spending a whole bunch of money on other things, it could kind of pretty well self-sustain as I was kind of growing the traction of it. And then to kind of fuel the growth a little bit and allow me to go full-time, it was actually an award from the Venture for America program that I mentioned. I was awarded $45,000 through them, and that allowed me to accelerate it a little bit. And that's huge in the consumer product space, especially the consumer packaged goods space, because there's very little seed stage funding in this space. It's just, you know, in the tech area, and which is kind of, that's kind of where I started my career, and that's the world I knew. And so you kind of create these assumptions that the entrepreneurial world is always flush with cash and investment, and that's just not true for the vast majority of industries. And so you got to figure out how to either self-fund or B, find interesting ways of funding. And most people either fund it themselves or they go through friends and family if they can afford it. I'm raising another round right now through friends and family because $45K isn't enough to kind of keep the company going in the long run. Yep.
And what about marketing? So in terms of seeding and sampling, word of mouth, how is that working for you?
Yeah. So in the early days, again, it was our early growth was really fueled by word of mouth. We had, you know, we knew a good enough product that our customers were talking about it. We did very little external marketing on the paid side or anything. And it wasn't until we got some of the funding together that we started doing, you know, some of the more lean, you know, paid marketing. I've been actively running Facebook campaigns, developed a fan base there. Google AdWords, which is a hard world to learn, but can be beneficial in the long run. And working on things like SEO, which takes months and months and months to really develop, but we're really starting to see the payback from that now. And we do little shows when we have an opportunity. I was in Brooklyn from Friday until Sunday doing a coffee and tea festival there, and it's just a matter of getting it in front of you know, as many people as possible. And there's about 8,000 people came to this show. So you know, it's a product that requires a little bit of education, but we have an extremely high reorder rate once people try it and buy it. So I think we'll start seeing us do more, you know, in-person demos, trying to get into store, trying to do more shows. We've only really done coffee and tea shows. I think we're going to start focusing more on verticals that line up well with coffee and tea, but aren't necessarily coffee and tea. We do some basic marketing in like the yoga space and CrossFit and triathlons around athletes, and so we'll probably start doing those kind of shows because a lot of our customer base has self-identified as being from those groups, as well as some of the tech markets. So we help, I mean, we support through just free product some of the accelerators, some of the major accelerators on the East and West Coast, and we have product in a lot of the tech companies on the East and West Coast. So, you know, I think it will be, the thrust of our marketing is going to turn into just getting into as many people's hands as possible.
Well, we should, you know, we should probably add powerlifters to that. If only we knew a powerlifter that we could bounce this off. But we'll get back to you on that one. But
all right.
But I actually think South by Southwest next year could be a real milestone for you, and we should brainstorm a little bit because I see some sampling in your future. Looking into my crystal ball over here. So I think we're up. So time's up. So I'll hand back to the boss.
Thank you so much, James, for joining us. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you at South by Southwest next year.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking the time.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye.